I want to talk a little bit about AEW's Continental Classic Tournament and give my thoughts on this idea and kind of what's been going on with AEW lately. Now, a buddy of mine had recommended that I do a video discussing some of the problems in AEW, but I've done a few of those already, and I kind of don't want to. I don't want to beat up on Tony Khan all the time, like verbally. You know what I mean? I've said good things about Tony Khan. He's a nice guy. In fact, I think he's almost too nice to be in wrestling. You understand what I'm saying? With, the way he is, and he's almost, when you look at him, yes, he is a son of a billionaire and has access to funds that most of us will never have access to, but he doesn't seem like a person who's malicious. You understand what I'm saying? So I feel weird about doing an anti-Tony Khan video. I did want to talk about, and when I say anti-Tony Khan, I have no problem with the guy personally, but I do criticize him on this channel in a different way than others do. You know what I mean? I have a different method of doing it. But what I wanted to talk about, though, was the Continental Classic Tournament and this idea behind it. So, and I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of it, okay? So, Tony Khan and Eddie Kingston and guys in AEW, Bryan Danielson, they grew up hardcore fans of All Japan Pro Wrestling, and I did too. The All Japan Pro Wrestling Triple Crown is the 3 titles that were put together and became All Japan's top title going all the way back. And they had this tournament called the Champions Carnival, which is basically what inspired this tournament. Same thing with the G1. So I say that because I am the target audience for a tournament like this. A fan like myself, I've done videos on this channel with people like Caro and Medios. If you've been a long-time subscriber, you remember those. Medios a couple weeks ago. And we watch a lot of wrestling, so we know what this is. So the hardcore fans, many of you understand the Champions Carnival tournament, the G1, and why those kinds of tournaments are fun. Plus, other sports do them, like soccer. They can be a lot of fun, and they can it's fun to talk about the matches and then discuss who's in the lead, who's going to win. Those things are, especially with the G1. The G1, I think, maybe not in recent years, but those mid-2010 G1s were just fantastic. There was one year where Kota Ibushi was just on fire, and every match he had was phenomenal. So the pros of the Continental Classic Tournament is that you're going to get great matches every week on TV. At least 3, because Dynamite has 3 matches a week, and Collision has 3 matches a week in the tournament. However, we already get good matches from AEW. We've talked about this before. We've already gotten great matches from AEW. So one of the things that I've talked about time and time again on this channel is that AEW tends to focus too much on the internet audience, the newsletter followers, the Meltzerites, the internet people, the Sean Ross Sapp subscribers, the hardcore fans, the fans that are going to watch no matter what, and the fans that love great wrestling matches. Now, the issue with that is that the vast majority of casual wrestling fans are not those fans. It's the same thing with anything in life. You can be a hardcore fan of Marvel, read the comics, watch all the TV, watch all the animated shows, or you can be a casual who just watches the MCU and doesn't really know much about the comics, instead goes to YouTube to find out more. Channels like Comics Explained, Variant Comics, even my channel from time to time, Den of Nerds, shout out to all of them. So the thing is that AEW hyper focuses on match quality and on getting star ratings from Meltzer and the internet crowd. And even though I actually kind of like these kinds of tournaments, as a fan, I do enjoy these tournaments. I like the G1. They're fun. I don't know if this is the right move for AEW. I've talked about how they're, like I said, focused too much on a small section of the audience. And instead of Tony Khan trying to make his product more mainstream and a little bit more, a little bit more focused on story as opposed to matches, he's instead going to be leaning even more into the internet stuff. Now, QT Marshall recently left AEW, and for those of you who don't know, QT Marshall was Tony Khan's assistant booker. Now I believe it's either Bryan Danielson, Jimmy Jacobs, or a combination of the two. Now, I think that this tournament was probably booked by Bryan Danielson as well because of the fact that he loves this kind of stuff. I mean, when it comes to in-ring wrestling, Bryan Danielson, you can't get much better than that, right? The problem is that the casual viewer at home doesn't really want to follow all this math, doesn't really understand these round robin tournaments. Single elimination tournaments, I feel, are simple. They're not too complicated, but they also, I hate to say this is going to sound mean, but casual fans of anything don't want to think sometimes. Now, you can make them think a little bit, right? Obviously. And I don't think this tournament is necessarily a bad idea. I do think that AEW does far too many tournaments for their own good, I feel. If this is going to become an annual thing, they should just keep it to they have just the Owen Hart tournament and this one, and that's it. Unless there's some kind of injury or something, keep it like this. In fact, they could even take this Continental Tournament and do a tag team version of it, because AEW has tons of tag teams. You can do that as well. But for me, I feel like one of the issues is that the problem here is at the top. AEW has been not doing so well lately when it comes to attendance and TV ratings. They have not had a lot of success and momentum. And part of the problem is their product's just not appealing to the mainstream. The star who they have that gets the most amount of eyeballs is MJF for various reasons. MJF comes off like somebody who would have fit in any era. You take Maxwell Jacob Friedman, you put him in the 80s with Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, he fits as a slimy heel. Or Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes, he fits right there. You take him and you put him in the Attitude Era with Stone Cold and The Rock, he definitely fits in the Attitude Era with his promo style, like, he's there. Ruthless Aggression Era, you could see him being a great foil for John Cena and Edge. Hell, we might even see a Adam Copeland MJF match at some point in AEW. This guy is so well-rounded and so good at what he does that everybody knows it and everybody watches for him. However, he's the champion. He's also hurt now, and that's another piece of bad luck for AEW. AEW's kind of been cursed lately, y'all. I don't know if you picked up on this. But I personally feel like the Continental Classic, even though as a fan, I will enjoy the match quality, enjoy, Strickland, Jay Lethal, Eddie Kingston, Bryan Danielson, Andrade, all these dudes. I'm going to enjoy their matches as best I can. It still feels like you're booking for the hardcores again. Now, there is a way to do this and kind of bring the casual audience with you. I just think that timing-wise, right now might not be the best time. However, in Tony Khan's defense, he himself has said that Bryan Danielson does not have a lot of time left in his career. He might want to get this first tournament off the ground with Bryan to make sure that we can get some good stuff out of him, and then he can ride off into the sunset next year when he's supposed to retire. There's actually a video of TK where he said that Bryan came to him in 2021 and said, I've got 3 more years left and I'm retiring, because he has a kid now. I think he has 2 kids. And TK's like, the hourglass is ticking, which I 100% can relate to him on that, dude. Like, as a fan, Bryan's been my favorite wrestler for years. And the fact that he's going to be leaving us again, it's kind of a bummer. But I also respect the man enough to know he's got a family now with Brie Bella. Good for him. And he's making good money. But at the same time, man, like, I'm making this video to illustrate that I don't think the Continental Classic, I get that maybe that's why he's doing it. I don't think this is the answer. I think, and I've said this before, what AEW has to do is create compelling characters and storylines, focus on important characters like what they're doing with Christian, like that's good stuff, and even MJF and Adam Cole. Focus on these characters and get them over. Do like with the Bloodline Judgment Day. Don't copy them. Don't copy what they're doing, but it's all about development and getting to know the characters. The issue with AEW is, one of the issues, they have such a huge roster and not enough people get TV time. Britt Baker's complaining on Twitter now that she doesn't get no TV time and no promo time in 2023. Matt Hardy's complaining about Jeff Hardy and himself not getting any TV time. You've got the Hardy Boys, maybe one of the most popular, top 5 popular tag teams in the history of wrestling, and you're doing nothing with them. And that's because the pattern that we've seen from AEW is Tony will sign somebody, book them for a few months, and then forget about them, then try again later. That's why everybody says that he books like action figures. Because it's like, oh, here's my new toy. Here's my new toy. That's why that comparison's been made by Cornette, Dutch Mantel, Bischoff. And I know some folks are going to say, well, they hate Tony Khan. No, they don't. Maybe Cornette does, but it ain't just them 3. Everyone's made that comparison because that's how it feels. They need to strip that roster down. Look, I am not for people getting cut and losing their jobs. I am not saying that. But think about this. If you take 30% of AEW's roster, let's just say 30%, based on sheer numbers, both men and women, or just men even if you want to just do that, you can start your own wrestling company with them. Like, for real, you could do that because there are so many people under contract, over 200, and you just don't have the TV time. 5 hours of TV a week works if you have a few characters. WWE has the 3 different brands, and even sometimes they struggle with this, but not as much as AEW. AEW has a lot of people. And the other issue is AEW does not do short matches. So all these Continental Classic matches are 20 minutes long. There's people who have DVRs who are not being able or not able to see the main events because the show cuts off. Now they're doing overruns. There's a whole controversy about that. So instead of Khan trying to be more, and I'm not saying to be more like WWE, it's more so to be more like a television show where you're telling stories. It's all about stories and characters. That's what it's about. So instead of him leaning more into that, he's doing more of the hardcore fan stuff, which is not going to work. I think maybe his strategy is if we guarantee 3 big matches on every TV show, fans are going to come. And that might work for independents and maybe Ring of Honor back in the day, but not now. I think there's just, AEW's a much bigger company. They have to answer to TBS and TNT and everybody else. So I don't think that strategically this is the way to go. I don't think it is. It might satisfy a section of the audience, but the mainstream will not care. I stand by that. Those are my thoughts. Take care.